Good morning, and welcome to another in our Integration Developer News Executive Webinar Series on Enterprise Integration and SOA through the Software Lifecycle. This is Vance McCarthy, your moderator for today's session, which is entitled, Bring Automated Agile SOA Governance to IBM WebSphere Service Registry and Repository to Boost Business Results. Presenting on today's topic, I am pleased to be joined by two experts. Sunil Murthy, Senior Product Manager for IBM WebSphere Registry and Repository Software, and Alistair Farkas, Chief Technology Officer at SOA Software. Before we get into our session, let me quickly introduce today's speakers. Sunil Murthy is responsible for strategic vision of WSRR as part of IBM's SOA offerings, working closely with both end users and partners. He focuses on how to drive productivity and business goals using SOA governance, and brings more than 14 years' experience in mission-critical enterprise architecture to his current post, including experience in middleware, business integration, and, of course, SOA and SOA governance. Sunil, good morning.
Good morning, Vance.
Alistair Farkas spearheads the product design, architecture, and implementation of SOA management, and governance offerings at SOA Software. He is an expert in application development with focus on distributed environments, SOA, and scalable systems. And prior to SOA Software, he advised top CTOs and enterprise architects for Internet and SOA issues. Alistair, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks a lot, Vance.
During today's session, these two executives will describe how automated SOA governance is helping customers cut SOA budgets and boost SOA's effectiveness and business output. You will learn how Fortune 1000s are benefiting from a new, agile, and full-featured approach to SOA governance and federation across the entire enterprise that readily fits into any heterogeneous environment. Among our topics today are automating unified SOA governance to drive business outcomes and return on investment, how to leverage WebSphere Service Registry and Repository for end-to-end governance, policy compliance, and control, getting more from SOA, including speeding launch times, better business alignment, and support for quicker updates, and, of course, some customer solutions. Our featured technology focus today will be IBM WebSphere Service Registry and Repository and SOA Software Unified Governance. By the end of today's session, you will see the power of IBM's WSRR and SOA software, whether your project is for a single department or spans across the enterprise or even across the globe. One housekeeping item before we begin. To see the slides in a larger window, simply click the gray Enlarge Slide button at the bottom of your screen. And to ask a question to our speakers, all you need to do is minimize that enlarge view, and you'll get right back to the Ask a Question box. So lots to cover today. Let's get started with Sunil Murthy from IBM.
Thank you, Vance. It's a pleasure to be here and to be talking with you, as well as great to be partnering with SOA Software and talk about the value that we jointly bring in to our customers and the larger community. So my name is Sunil Murthy, as Vance introduced, and I'm going to be walking through just some high-level features of WSRR as well as the updated view in terms of what we've been doing in this area so that you can have that background. If you look at the history of WSRR and just generally history of service registry and repository, you notice that the importance of registry repository has grown from being a mere yellow pages kind of technology to be really a centralized information source for all the services in the environment. And the service metadata aspect, wherein the services information as it's related to the applications, to the consumers, providers, and the associated policies have grown to be of high value to our customers. So this particular slide summarizes the value that a technology like a WSRR brings to the table to our business partners such as SOA Software, and how our joint customers have been seeing the value and realizing this value. So if you look through some of the high-level aspects of the technology benefits, the information source in terms of being the registry repository as the central source of information is of high value, so that you essentially have the source of metadata in a centralized access, and that is governed so that you control the quality of the service information. The integration and federation aspect of WSRR is one of those differentiating aspects that we see value with our customers and our business partners. The most likely situation is for customers to already have services in their environment. So the ability to readily integrate and federate with the other registries, be it a UDDI registry or other application providers registry or a platform registry, is of immense value, so that very quickly you can have a visibility in terms of what you have in the environment. So that is a fundamental aspect of what we bring to the table. And then when you start to think about what's in the registry repository, then you can start to extend the value in terms of modeling your services so that it aligns with your business applications, be it business services aspects or policy aspects, as well as what is that governance capability that is so key so that your environment is protected from rogue service information, be it your runtimes integrated with WSRR, or be it your deployment environment in be it an off-premise or an on-premise situation of a cloud environment. And the policy management aspect, which is something that we have been very impressed with what a partner like SOA Software brings to table, is increasingly becoming important to our customers, because a lot of the governance decisions could be realized as policies. So increasingly that becomes the method in which customers enforce and implement the governance practices. And WSRR has grown in that importance to be not only a service metadata registry repository, but also a policy repository as such that are linked to the services. So what we bring to table is essentially this open, pluggable architecture in being a WSRR solution that can be easily integrated and extended by business partners so that our end customers see the value. Now, going to the next slide here, the key challenges that any governance solution for that matter should address, and certainly WSRR champions, is really in these areas where customers have essentially a growing number of services that are unmanageable or inefficient. You could have services from a variety of different applications or services that are being built, but if you do not have visibility of these services, you can't gain control, you can't govern. And that's the benefit that we bring in, that you readily have a service visibility and governance aspect with WSRR. The other aspect, which we all know is the promise of SOA, is the reuse aspect. How do you track who's using these services? How do you track that you're achieving the reuse goals that you have set out in your environment? And that's the other aspect in terms of what we bring in with WSRR, with the solution to provide the reuse statistics as well as reuse information. And how do you control costs? Right? If you have services that can be reused instead of building new, or if you have services that can be slightly modified in being a new version that can add value to a whole set of new consumers, that immediately optimizes the IT investments and really enables the governance of services in a service provider-consumer relationship. And that's the core benefit that we bring to table as well. And the fourth area here is really compliance. Customers have a variety of different compliance needs, be it enterprise architecture compliance, be it regulatory compliance like HIPAA or SOX, as well as the governance standards compliance. And this is where this area, as I mentioned earlier, is increasingly becoming important for our customers, and a partner like SOA Software adds tremendous value in help achieving those goals and meeting those needs. And last but not least is certainly we have been advocating the business agility factors in the overall SOA deployments that IBM has. And we have proven value that we have brought to table with all the various customer deployments. And that aspect of business flexibility, business agility is something that we champion with WSRR. essentially because WSRR comes pre-built with integration with BPM solutions, with ESB solutions, be it IBM or non-IBM, and that can immediately add value to help meet those business needs. Let's take a look at service visibility and governance deployments in a variety of different industries. How the WSRR combined with complementary solutions, be it IBM or a business partner such as SOA Software. If you look at manufacturing industries, the companies really trying to optimize costs and manage and optimize the process. We have customers who have deployed the solutions and have been able to prove value by improvising their customer satisfaction needs. And this particular customer that we worked with, actually we're able to reduce the customer response times down from 4 days to right about 4 hours. Tremendous improvements in customer satisfaction. We can give numerous examples such as these, especially in other industries such as insurance, where we were able to provide ROI between 6 to 9 months for what the customers invested. And over 3 years, that ROI jumps to more than 700%. And this is a very phenomenal value add that we've been able to drive with our governance solutions. The retail industry, of course, we have many customers in this industry as well. In this particular customer example, we were targeting the service quality needs where the services that are in the critical path of everyday deployment needed to be managed and governed so that you don't have downtimes, and that was something that we were able to achieve very easily. Now, I should mention that we recently also went live in a public forum with a customer of ours in New York State Department of Labor. There was a press release from the customer mentioning about how WSRR was able to help them meet the growing needs of the Department of Labor requirements in terms of unemployment benefits and whatnot. So with that, let me also mention that we have documented a lot of these return on investment results that we have seen with customers, what we call as business value that we have brought to table in a paper that's available in public domain, and you can take a look at that. And here we talk about the variety of different industries that I just mentioned earlier, manufacturing, insurance, and retail, to name a few, and how customers have been able to realize the returns in the area of reducing costs or improvising their maintenance or improvising their productivity, as well as how do they achieve the increase in reuse and really essentially deliver the promise of SOA. Highly encourage you to take a look at this particular paper. The next slide here talks about the products that WSRR has championed with integration. And integration is such a core aspect of a registry repository solution, and we've been able to drive that integration right from the day we started to build the solution internally. So if you look at the spectrum of integrations here, right from the tools, any Eclipse-based tools or Microsoft Studio.NET, as well as the UDDI registries, be it any type of UDDI registry, and also importantly, how do we enable those runtime integrations in the area of ESBs and BPM, be it IBM or outside, and the management aspect, including data power appliances as well as other management systems. More importantly, as I mentioned, the value that business partners add, especially someone like SOA Software, in the area of improvising the policy enforcement aspect, as well as ability to drive that service health information federation across the systems, really gives you another level of control, another layer of governance, which really brings in that automation aspect and drives it to that goal of realizing automated governance. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more details coming up later on that. I should mention also that we do have a broad strategy that helps WSRR to be integrated and essentially also potentially OEM by many different ISVs, be it in the application or middleware space. And we have a long list of ecosystem partners that we integrate with that we can bring to the table based on customer needs. Now, why is it such a key aspect that WSRR has driven, and what do we bring to table from a business partner value adds, which is highlighted in this next slide here. As I mentioned, WSRR has grown from being a simple register repository to be that prescriptive service lifecycle governance system. So we ship WSRR with models and life cycles and a whole bunch of templates that customers can readily use in meeting their governance needs. And the fact that WSRR is an extensible system with an open API framework that our customers, that our business partners such as SOA Software can leverage, adds to the capabilities of WSRR and completes in terms of the capabilities of what the customers may need. And this extends the core capabilities of what WSRR brings in the area of policies, versioning, or service provider consumer contract management. All these aspects we have out-of-the-box models, but it comes to fruition only if you use the information in WSRR. And our business partners, especially SOA Software, helps us to achieve that by bringing in that complementary solution set. So it's a very good relationship that we've had with SOA Software. And if I can summarize what kind of relationship we've had, and hoping that we can expand this relationship and really try to meet the increasing customer needs. Here, the next slide here summarizes that capabilities. So how do we leverage the service metadata information within WSRR and extend and enhance the WSRR capability with the value proposition that SOA Software brings to table? And that is the goal that we set out to achieve, and very satisfied and impressed with what this partner is able to do in terms of ensuring that the services in WSRR aligns with the overall goals of SOA that the customers have, in making sure that there is consistent governance and enforcement in the overall system, be it IBM platforms or other platforms that the customers may have. And, there's a complementary aspects to a variety of different runtimes that WSRR integrates with, case in point, data power, that SOA Software adds good complementary capabilities to provide management viewpoints as well. This new announcement that we made in the area of Policy Manager is a very exciting one, and you'll hear more about this later on. This shows that the continuing enhancements and expansion in terms of the complementary aspect that IBM and SOA Software can achieve. So I will conclude this first section of this webcast by also saying that IBM does continue to drive the strong ecosystem in SOA, which is absolutely necessary with what you need as a customer and an evaluator of solutions. As you know, IBM is the largest SOA provider in terms of foundation technology and middleware, and you can see a lot of these success stories on our website, as well as our unparalleled customer implementations. And IBM has been very strong with business partner community always, and the focused SOA community has grown from what was just about less than 1,000 a few years back to over 7,000 now. So it's very critical for us to make sure that partners like SOA Software get that visibility. So to hear more about that, and especially the new exciting development in the policy management space, I will now hand over the call to the CTO of SOA Software, Alistair Farkas.
Thank you very much, Sunil. It was a great introduction. So SOA Software is a unified SOA and cloud services governance vendor. And what that means is we essentially take a look over SOA, and we extend SOA into a heterogeneous environment, and we also extend SOA into the cloud. We've recently had announcements around the cloud services broker, which works very well with the data power appliance, for example. And we also have many announcements ongoing around the IBM product suite, including the Data Power Appliance as well as WSRR, that you're welcome to come and have a look at our website and find out some more information on. Essentially, SOA Software is looking at three different stages of a services lifecycle: the planning stage, the building stage, and ultimately the running stage of an SOA. And essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to allow people and enterprises to align the people and processes that they have as well as their technology to transform their business into the concept of enterprise services. And we do that through automating the governance in conjunction with organizations like IBM. We try and reduce the risk as much as possible, and that goes hand in hand, of course, with the automation and the integration that we provide. And we also try to ease the compliance, which generally lowers the burden of a IT transformation into the SOA space. Essentially, the products that we provide overall reduce the cost and risk of enterprise services. We provide planning governance, which essentially governs the ability to plan the services in the first place. We provide development governance, which allows organizations to build services the right way. And then we also provide operational governance, which helps organizations to run services the right way. And this works, as Sunil mentioned, hand in hand with the WSRR registry to extend the capabilities of WSRR into a heterogeneous space and to also provide it, I guess, with teeth from an operational perspective, irrespective of the runtime environment, that extends the policies and capabilities of WSRR and allows us to enforce them in an operational heterogeneous environment. If you take a look at the overall life cycle of a service, and you look at the slide currently in the webinar, you start on the left-hand side with the identification of a service and proceed all the way to the right-hand side to its ultimate deprecation. And along this way, the service has, of course, different kinds of governance activities. If you start on the far left-hand side, there's a concept of planning governance or portfolio management that is really focused on ensuring that you build the correct service in the first place. And that's really important because a lot of the return on investment and a lot of the reuse that is touted through SOA or desired through an SOA program depends on effective planning. There's no point in just going out and building a bunch of services without any idea of who's going to be consuming those services and whether or not those services align with IT initiatives. Once those services have been planned, those services are then going to be built. And of course, you might have a number of different environments. It's probably a heterogeneous development environment. You're going to have a WSRR registry repository in that environment potentially, and you want to control the development activities of these services within the native experience for each of the developers. So controlling the development governance phases of the life cycle is an important collaboration between the SOA software products and the IBM WSRR product. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. Once these services have been developed, of course, they then need to be operationally governed. And once again, these services may be running within an IBM environment. They may be running in a heterogeneous environment on other platforms, such as Microsoft's or Oracle's. But what most of the organizations that we deal with want to do is they want to have a consistent policy management repository. And for many of our IBM customers, that policy repository is WSRR. What they want to be able to do is they want to be able to control policies that are enforced in the Oracle platform or on the Sun platform or on the JBoss platform using the WSRR policies within their repository. And that is not easily achievable without an integrated solution such as ours. And I'll describe that a little bit later on. So the real goal around lowering the overall cost of SOA and simplifying the development of SOA really requires an entire unified lifecycle approach. You really need to consider planning, you need to consider development governance, and you need to consider operational governance across the board, across the lifecycle, and across the set of platforms you have within your environment. To take a step back quickly, IBM and SOA Software have had a partnership for many, many years. SOA Software is an IBM Advanced partner, And we have separate integrations across the IBM product stack. We have multiple integrations with the WebSphere products. I'll talk about those in a second. We integrate with the Tivoli products, the Rational products, and the IBM mainframe products such as CICS and IMS. So we've really had a lot of experience working with IBM as well as working with IBM customers, and we present, I believe, a lot of joint value with the IBM product set. To get more information about these things, you can always come and have a look at our website at www.soa.com/IBM, and there's some white papers there. And certainly, you can go to the IBM sites as well and look for any updated descriptions in the Global Solutions Directory that IBM offers. So to look a little bit across the partnerships and across the product integrations we have with IBM, you can look at the IBM WebSphere Message Broker, for instance, which SOA Software integrates with today and provides some policy enforcement and monitoring on that platform. We integrate with WebSphere Application Server for very similar reasons. We integrate with the DataPower SOA appliances and provide policy and virtualization on that particular appliance. And we integrate with the WSRR repository to provide governance federation. And what I mean by that is the ability to take the policies defined within WSRR and assist in their enforcement across a heterogeneous environment. We also integrate with the WebSphere Process Server and ESB, and we integrate with the Rational Application Developer, ClearCase, and ClearQuest to assist with the portfolio management and development activities around services as well. When you look at an SOA program around governance, there are several key capabilities that you need to ensure that you're delivering. Whether or not you're delivering your SOA through a center of excellence or whether you have a project-based approach to SOA, there are several key things that we found that are pretty valuable and essential, I guess, to the successful delivery of an SOA practice within an organization. The first is around service lifecycle management. And as I mentioned, the service lifecycle encompasses planning, development, and operations. And it's important to look at these things in the larger whole and consider how you're going to be integrating the development lifecycle and the planning lifecycle as well as the operational delivery lifecycle of your services, and how exactly you're going to be automating that as much as possible. Furthermore, you really want to automate the business model that you see around SOA. And what I mean by the business model is how do you actually propose to propagate the governance practices that you've built? How do you propose to create a shared services environment? How do you propose to enforce architectural standards? And this needs to be built into the product set and the life cycle and the best practices and methodologies that you come up with. So it's also important to, of course, automate that business model. So if you're going to go with a shared services model or a delegated administration model, you need to be able to automate those best practices into a solution like WSRR and encompass it from the planning stages of the life cycle all the way into production. You need to ensure that the services within the registry repository are clearly described. You need to ensure that you have service visibility across the various organizational boundaries, various service types, and various platforms within your organization. And you also need to be able to provide effective version and change control. A lot of these capabilities are provided by the WSR product, and a lot of these capabilities are enhanced, especially in a heterogeneous space, through an integration with our product and its ability to enforce WSR practices and policies in that heterogeneous environment. In many cases, our customers are using a product like WSRR to enforce architectural best practices, approvals, workflows, definitions of varieties of services, and it's non-trivial to actually ensure that these best practices actually translate across into or are imposed upon other registries and repositories and other runtime environments provided by Microsoft and Oracle and other platform providers. So we, through our integration with WSRR, actually make that information in WSRR enforceable inside those other platforms and other environments. You want to be able to control demand-side provisioning. So in many cases, you want to set up a service brokerage. You want to allow consumers to specify their policies. You want to allow providers to define a policy around security or service level. And you really need these policies to then be enforced within the environment, whether or not that environment is data power and you need a transparent translation of policy from the WSRR system into data power, or whether or not you actually are leveraging another platform or another vendor's ESB product or application server product, and you need those policies defining WSRR and those relationships and those provisioning tasks transparently translated into that target environment. The concept of contracts, Sunil brushed upon earlier. Contracts cover the provisioning of services, they cover access control, and they cover SLA enforcement. All of these things are critical in a heterogeneous environment. If you have a Microsoft consumer invoking services within WebSphere's ESB, then you basically need to be able to convey and implement policies within the .NET environment to effectively consume the services within the WebSphere ESB. And providing that translation, providing that policy implementation native into the .NET environment is something that our product and our integration can provide. Looking at policy management, of course, you want to be able to abstract the policies from the applications themselves. So you want to, again, looking at .NET as an example, you want to be able to take the WS security policies out of the hands of the developers. You want to be able to centrally control WS security policies. And that is something that this integration can provide to our customers today. Generally, when you're looking at policy management, you really want to achieve consistency and interoperability and a transparent enforcement of policy across that heterogeneous environment. Without that and without that assurance of that interoperability and that enforcement of policy, you really don't have any confidence around your SOA, and you start getting governance outages, you start getting misbehaving services, and you start getting points where consumers cannot call services because they don't understand the policies or the policies aren't standards compliant. Overall, you want to ensure that you close the loop. So as I was talking earlier about defining policies within WSRR, you want to be able to enforce those policies in a heterogeneous environment, whether it be a Microsoft environment or another environment. You want to ensure that the policies that you've defined within WSRR are applicable to your entire organization. So closing the loop is really, really critical. You want to be able to define a policy in WSRR and have that automatically picked up and enforced within your entire heterogeneous environment. And then you want all of the performance statistics and the runtime feedback and the alerts and the events to get propagated back into the WSRR system. And through this mechanism, through this closing of the loop, you're actually assured that whenever a policy is defined in a particular platform or defined within WSRR, it is actually effectively and properly enforced in the target environment, and any exceptions to those rules are reported back into your governance platform. So going back to the slide that Sunil showed earlier, essentially you're defining policies in WSRR. Those policies are then enforced and distributed to a heterogeneous environment, and all of the health information from that heterogeneous environment is fed back into WSRR. And the effect of the integration is really to reduce the integration costs for the end customer. So that is your advantage as a customer of the initiative that SOA Software and IBM has partnered on. Doing the integration between the policy enforcement engine and the policy definition engine, such as WSRR, is a non-trivial thing. You have to take care of things like the state of the service in its life cycle. You have to take care of change management concerns. You have to ensure that the policy is effectively propagated. You have to ensure that the meta model of the service is consistent between the WSRR product and the actual runtime environment. So we've taken great pains in ensuring that the integration between WSRR and SOA Software is effective and closes that loop that I mentioned earlier. So the benefit to the customer is that the integration cost of integrating WSRR into a heterogeneous environment is greatly lowered by the partnership of SOA Software and IBM. So going back to those points, SOA Software provides a product called Portfolio Manager that integrates with WSRR to ensure that services align with plan and priority. So Portfolio Manager is a planning product, and it allows you to basically model a service and its strategic value to the business. It allows you to model a service based on its alignment with different IT initiatives. It allows you to model a service based on its potential return on investment. And the goal of the Portfolio Manager product is basically to feed WSRR with a prioritized list of candidate services. Now, these services are abstract services. They haven't been well defined. They haven't gone into the design or development phases of the life cycle. They are really still in the portfolio management or planning stages of the life cycle. What our customers then do, of course, is they then develop the service on the IBM platform. So they're using the Rational toolset, they're using WSRR, they're using WebSphere, they are in a familiar environment, essentially developing and implementing this list of candidate services. Well, once the services have proceeded through their life cycle, and the point in their life comes around where you actually want to be able to enforce policies, you want to deploy these particular services into an environment, our product is then capable of taking those policies defined within WSRR and enforcing them in the heterogeneous environments, such as Oracle, Microsoft, SAP, JBoss, TIBCO, etc. We also then take the runtime statistics and populate them back into WSRR. So the importance here is that you can use a single registry repository to control the development and policy management of services in a heterogeneous environment. And WSRR then becomes the repository that you use to manage and maintain your policies across the entire organization. And I think that that is a really important point that I hope you take away from this presentation today. The other thing that our product does is we can control and manage the policies for data power appliances. So we become an engine, a configuration tool, essentially for data power, transparently taking information out of WSRR, controlling the data power appliance, publishing those policies into data power, virtualizing services within data power, and feeding all of that information and all of those virtual service definitions back into WSRR. So we've created a really good platform for integration around policy, around a heterogeneous environment, extending that into a data power system, and allowing you to control policies from a central point. This is a screenshot that shows you briefly the portfolio manager that we've developed for IBM WebSphere WSRR. It shows you at a very, very high level, I know that it's difficult to see, the various service candidates that you have in play, and a lightweight meta model for actually defining those service candidates and the relationships that those service candidates have to various strategic IT initiatives. What a lot of our customers are doing today is that they're trying to align their SOA program with their cloud computing program. They're trying to align their SOA program with their legacy modernization or their MDM program. And they're doing this because they can achieve greater leverage across their different platforms. If you're going to be versioning a particular application to potentially move it to the cloud or to modernize it, you might as well at the same time also do some service analysis and figure out what the reusable services are within that platform. And when you're a large organization, you don't necessarily have a single point where you can actually go and look at your different IT initiatives, the different applications that are in flow, and the different potential service candidates that come out of that. And that is the focus of the Portfolio Manager product. The end result of this portfolio management process, of course, is a set of published candidate services within WSRR that can then be developed, that you can then assign policies to, and then you can then use those policies for enforcement in your heterogeneous environment. Which brings me to the Policy Manager. So the Policy Manager is essentially extending WSRR control to non-IBM environments. So we do the Policy Federation. We become a distribution point for policy for WSRR. So any WSRR policies are exposed then through metadata exchange and WS resource transfer and allow us to propagate those policies into those heterogeneous environments where we have agents and intermediaries that are capable of enforcing those policies. So even platforms that have no understanding of WSRR policies natively are now capable of being controlled through WSRR. And last but not least, we also extend WSRR with policy automation for data power. And what this means is that our policy manager actually acts as an engine that extracts policies out of WSRR and publishes them in a controlled way into the data power appliances. It allows you to control a cluster of data power appliances as a single entity, and it takes all of the performance data from the data power appliances and publishes it back into WSRR. So it's really useful for closing the loop and automating the process of taking services that are in your registry repository, automatically virtualizing them within your data power environment. So that concludes my presentation. If there's a couple of takeaways, just in summary, the SOA Software's Policy Manager product for WSRR extends WSRR solution to heterogeneous environments. It's really important because it provides you with a central point of policy control across your environment and across your SOA solution. It ensures that the services are relevant and consumable across those environments, that the services comply with development and operational policies, and that WSRR users have visibility into the service performance and behavior across those heterogeneous platforms. If you need some more information, please take a look at soa.com/IBM, and we have plenty of information there, white papers and presentations that will hopefully answer any questions that you have. And with that, I think I'll transfer back to Vance for some Q&A.
Thank you, Alistair and Sunil, for a terrific look at SOA governance in both terms of runtime issues having to do with practical aspects of how the operations people work with business, as well as the development time group. Now, with your permission, we've got quite a number of questions that address many dimensions of SOA governance. So if you're both ready, let's get right to questions.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Let's start off with a level set question here. Both of you mentioned early cycle SOA governance has many benefits, including speeding up SOA deliverables. The question reads, please detail how WSRR SOA software partnership can help us more frequent SOA project launches and monitor them against business objectives and even KPIs.
Well, I can take a stab at that, Vance. I think that one of the key things about SOA governance is visibility. And I think that the earlier you can get visibility into SOA projects, the better. If you're looking at it from a governance perspective, or if you're just looking at it in a traditional project management perspective, you really need to be able to plan effectively for SOA projects as you plan effectively for any other project. So I think that the role of a governance platform like WSRR and certainly our products in that equation is to ensure that the process keeps moving. So if you're looking at standard development, you're looking at your development times, and if somebody is slacking off, then you know exactly where the process is stalled along the way. For SOA, the problem is a little bit broader. You're still in planning. You're trying to align services with consumers. You have provisioning tasks. You have a whole bunch of different, aspects to the workflow and life cycle of these services. So you need a new class of products and a new class of capabilities that can help you manage these SOA projects. And I think that the workflow capabilities built into WSRR and the planning capabilities built into the SOA software products really help provide that visibility and that control over your SOA project. What we found is that when people started tackling SOA, they went straight back to waterfall project management. And now people are starting to realize that with the change management policies built into these products, they can now more closely align their SOA development with their traditional development.
Absolutely. Well, very well put, Alistair. I would just say that the increasing reality that you have now a control point in your projects and how effectively you use it to meet your business needs and manage the budgets and productivity and other goals set out from an IT and business perspective is really entirely up to what level you would like to take. And increasingly we find these solutions in the governance space from an overall service lifecycle perspective become very effective communication tools. So, in terms of analytics, in terms of providing and communicating the goals that you have set out and really tracking those goals and using the solutions as really a communication vehicle really does help from meeting those deliverables and meeting those objectives that you set out to begin with.
You know, to me, this is such an interesting and meaty question. I wonder if I could just circle back and claim the moderator prerogative just for a moment. Perhaps each of you, starting with Alistair, can mention a few specific product names or features in your portfolio that really help tie the knot between SOA governance and business, because I think a lot of folks have some difficulty with that. So feel free to mention specific products or technology features that you have.
Well, I think from our side, our portfolio manager product is really good. In one particular regard, which is aligning the other strategic initiatives that an organization has with their SOA initiative. So I highlighted earlier that a lot of companies have cloud computing initiatives, and they have legacy modernization, and they have master data management initiatives, and understanding what the alignment is between those projects and the associated SOA projects is really critical, and managing the life cycle of the SOA project in conjunction with those projects, pushing them along, alerting people when they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, when a service doesn't have sufficient value, any kind of governance activities that you need to do within planning. These are really important to actually, get your SOA projects off the ground and make sure that you develop the right services in the first place.
Yeah, from IBM, you have a wide variety of different solutions, and given the scope of this discussion focused on WSRR, one of the new things that we have done is to make the user interface to be much more nimble and appealing, leveraging the latest technologies in the Web 2.0 space. And we call this business space from a technology perspective, and it's been proven to be very effective for someone like a business analyst to communicate to the CFOs on the showcasing the ROI aspect that I covered in my portion earlier today, as well as for IT directors and management to leverage the WSRR solution, leveraging the business-based technology to communicate the value and foster that reuse cultural aspect that we so dearly want to push in terms of the goals with SOA.
Very good, very good. This was an excellent discussion, Sunil and Alistair. Thanks for taking that time to connect the dots between governance and business needs, especially in this climate. Let's move on to another question now. Sunil, IBM mentioned several vertical areas where you were paying attention to customers, and one of the questions comes in, are you offering out-of-the-box templates to make SOA governance easier and more effective across multi-vendor installations? If so, please specify.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we have done is really listen to a wide variety of different customer needs, and it was very loud and clear for us when customers kept asking us to provide a lot of the out-of-the-box capabilities to meet their governance needs. And we have adhered to that, back in June 2009, as well as the latest release that was released back in December 2009. We have updated the technology to provide what we call as profiles and models so that it can meet a lot of the needs when it comes down to the governance, management, relationship building, contract management, versioning, policy, storage, classification, and ontology. And as you know, IBM, partnering with a variety of different other vendors, including the practitioners, with the open group, have come out with the SOA governance method. And this is a core aspect of our templates, wherein the method actually defines a lot of the out-of-the-box requirements from a governance capabilities in considering what is it that you need to tackle when you're building out governance needs. So we actually ship these templates that aligns with those practitioners' experience based on the open group standards. So that I would say is the core aspect of our out-of-the-box features that really addresses that productivity and quick ROI aspect, addressing what Alistair very nicely put, the iterative aspect of SOA.
Terrific, Sunil. And Alistair, I know from your presentation that SOA Software has done an awful lot of work in both going up the stack to integrate my governance assets into my vertical requirements as well as heterogeneous environments. Give us an overview again on how you can help to automate or at least make that easier in out-of-the-box capabilities.
Well, Sunil covered the methods and methodologies, and they're very important. The other half of the equation is, of course, the operational policies. And there's a lot of standardization around this, but it's not always evenly implemented. And I think that is the core of our value proposition with WSRR. So if you're going into WSRR and you're defining your operational policies, you need to have those consistently and reliably enforced in a heterogeneous environment. So I think the profiles that have been created around the policies and the various use cases that are met by the policies in the product allow that to happen. And the fact that you're assured that you're going to have interoperability for a particular set of security scenarios between one platform and another, and you don't have to really lift a finger to make that happen, is a very valuable case.
Here's another theme that a couple of attendees wanted to address here, and that is that capability of automation, or what is instantly available by the technology platform itself. One question here, maybe we can start with Alistair this time. Describe the most popular features of automated SOA governance in your product suite. Frankly, we don't have budget or staff for complex SOA initiatives, even if they offer value.
Right. I think that this is the motivation for a product like WSRR and our portfolio manager and policy manager products. The most expensive part around SOA is the people and process. So trying to encourage the desired behavior within an SOA program is really important. And if you just go and put those desired behaviors down on paper and express your methods and methodologies on paper to a group of developers, I think you have very little chance of those actually being followed and implemented within the environment. If you provide a product, however, that integrates with their development experience, that they integrate with and work with on a day-to-day basis, and that controls the various artifacts and policies that are being implemented in the runtime environment, then it really makes it a lot easier for organizations to propagate SOA governance. If you're looking at adopting SOA, I think that you really need to adopt a set of products that are going to embody your best practices and your principles and enforce your SOA governance. Without that, I don't believe that you can effectively do SOA governance, and I think that it is risky to attempt to make an organizational shift towards SOA.
And just quickly, Alistair, before we go to Sunil on this, from your experience, especially dealing with integrating WSRR with other assets from other vendors, what are the more popular automation features that SOA software offers your customers?
Well, I think that the most obvious one, of course, is aligning your SOA lifecycle with your software development lifecycle, and also interjecting elements of governance into your SDLC process in an automatic way. If you think about it, the most valuable thing in an SOA is not the service, it's the consumer. There should be far more consumers than services. And simply getting that balance right and making sure that you have an effective number of consumers and you have potential for reuse for a service is going to get you the return on investment you need at the end of the day. So I think automating your SOA lifecycle and integrating that with your SDLC is the most common area of automation that I see.
Terrific. And Sunil, I guess this question is also another way of asking time to value. Shorten my time to better value. WSRR certainly has got many improvements over the years. What are the most popular automated features of WSRR these days?
Sure. So the most popular ones that we see, given the economy and given the way the IT budgets have been scrutinized and the need for our IT leaders to do more with less, what we have found is, how can our customers and adopters show quick return in their investment and quick turnaround, with the adoption of WSRR. Let's take, for example, the service discovery capability in WSRR. Within a week, customers are able to now discover the existing services in their environment and show what is running in their environment. And that establishes a very good immediate success factor that can help communicate across the organization, secure funding to do bigger, better things. The other aspect is once you have these services, enforce or adopt and implement the out-of-the-box templates that I alluded to earlier. This is in the form of profiles or business models. And the third aspect is really in the area of supported integration patterns that we provide as part of supported patterns and capabilities within WSRR. So these capabilities have really helped us to continue to showcase the periodic success.
And just to underscore what both of you just said, the pictures you paint from the customer examples, SOA governance is not something that is limited only to, large mega corporations that anticipate thousands and thousands of services and many different kind of cross-departmental reuse scenarios. SOA governance is really a very tactical yet strategic way for a company of any size to really better justify and even amplify their SOA ROI.
That's a good summary, Vance.
Here's a question having to do with enterprise architecture. Alistair, this is directed to you. Is SOA software an intermediary layer or a proxy for providing connections between WSRR and other repositories or the data power appliance?
The SOA Software Policy Manager is a policy distribution point, so it is, I guess, an intermediary layer from the perspective of policy for enforcing policies on other devices and other platforms. WSRR has its own capabilities for integrating with other repositories. What we will do is we will allow policies defined within WSRR to be transparently enforced on the Oracle platform, for example, and allow WSRR to control and govern that platform. So we are an intermediary from a perspective of policy, but we are not connecting WSRR necessarily with other repositories within an SOA environment.
Very good description. I see we're just about out of time for this Q&A session, but there's another couple of questions that came in here that I think reflect the theme you both brought up. We heard an awful lot about the capabilities that you both offer for making SOA governance more effective and more agile across the entire life cycle from development to operations, and many questions came in about cloud. So I guess the best way to do is just ask a summary question to both of you as we close. How does IBM and SOA Software view applying these principles and some of these technologies into the cloud for some sort of SOA governance offering either from or of the cloud? Let's begin with Sunil.
Sure. Cloud is an increasingly becoming a common pattern on how service consumers are coming into customers' environment and consuming